Hi everyone, my name's Lindsay, and I'm going to start by telling you a story about a community that my news organization work with. Edgecombe County in North Carolina is one of the most impoverished counties in the state. 43% of students are below the poverty line. Hold on. We'll start here. We're good. 43% of students are below the poverty line. It's a county that was devastated by two 100-year hurricanes in the past 10 years. So devastated, in fact, that there are children that are afraid when it rains. So my organization has a specific arm of it called ReachNC Voices, which seeks to engage communities and figure out sort of what their pain points are, what their concerns are, and how we can help them. So we partnered with a high school in Edgecombe County, North Edgecombe High School, and the principal of this high school actually had a plan that he was working on to better the school, so we wanted to know what students thought about it. So we worked with an SMS texting system called Ground Source, which many of you are probably aware of, to set up a system of conversations with the students. So at the beginning of the class, the teachers sent these polls out to the students. It was just a set of five pretty simple questions revolving around, how do you feel about how you're treated in school? Do you feel like you're treated fairly, especially by your teachers? And what we discovered was that there were a good number of students who were overweight and obese who felt that the dress code was unfairly enforced on them. So we brought that information back to the principal, who we had a pretty good relationship with, and he was as equally concerned as we were and had a meeting with the teachers, and they had a long discussion about how to make sure that students weren't discriminated against through the school dress code. We ended up bringing some information back to the students who had originally texted us as well, and told them about some implementations with the bathrooms that they had been concerned about that the principal was already working on. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, what journalism used to look like and what it looks like through the lens that I work in it, which I think is pretty much the future of journalism. So journalism originally used to be pretty linear. It started with a pitch, ends with a publication. It's one journalist working on it. A lot of the information that they collect just goes right back into their head. It's not really disseminated in the newsroom, nor is it disseminated sort of to the public. So you lose a lot of transparency, and you also lose a lot of, there's a lot of data loss for the newsroom itself that is a disservice to other journalists. There's also no reciprocity to sources in this process. There's no inherent check that says, we originally contacted you, and thank you so much for being my source and for giving me this information. I'm going to give you some information back. It's not a part of the process, and there's also no real direct method of enacting change. So here's what the engagement cycle should look like, and I think will start to look like, based on things I've heard at this conference and just in the journalism industry as a whole. It starts with the community. It starts with talking to the people, like I was saying about, what is concerning them, just like we did with the students. And then you also talk to policymakers, which journalists already do. A lot of what journalists do is having relationships with these policymakers and understanding these very intricate things that the public doesn't necessarily understand, and then we are the bridge between the two of them. We are the communicators, and that direction can go either way. This bottom part is what I was talking about when I said that we went back to the students and we gave them information about things that they were concerned about that we had information about. It's called closing the engagement loop, and it's one of the most important parts of the process. Without it, you just have a half of a circle, and it's basically still a line. So, as in these semicircles between, you have this analysis and research that the journalist is collecting. You have a lot of data, and part of the process involving Part Part of what journalism is going to start to look like is utilizing technology to collect this data and make it easier to analyze. And you can imagine this in a content management system. You can imagine it on a dashboard. It can be, taking the interviews that you've had, like standardizing the questions, just like, a journalist prepares questions before they go out to an interview anyway. So, send out all these questions to as many people as you can. Then the responses you get back, that's data. Save it in a content management system. The sources that you have, that's data. These sources have demographic information. They have opinions, yeah. So that's my presentation. Thank you so much.